I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, a conversation with Courtney Cowley. She's a senior economist at the Kansas City Federal Reserve. We'll get an update on the Fed's look at where things are with the ag economy. Also, we'll have features from Kansas Corn, Kansas Wheat, and the Kansas Farm Bureau, along with the weekly update from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com. We've heard a lot of discussions about what is going on in the ag economy, and we thought we would get one of those experts that really takes a deep dive into it as we go to the Kansas City Federal Reserve and talk with senior economist Courtney Cowley. We will do that when we return on the Kansas Ag Report. The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. And joining us now is Courtney Cowley, who is a senior economist with the Kansas City Federal Reserve in the Oklahoma City branch. Courtney, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ken.
Always great to kind of catch up after Fed meetings or other things that we can kind of then glean some information there. But we do like to talk with you like in the quarterlies to see how things are going. And from a Fed standpoint, what are you observing right now?
Yeah, so markets have been a little unsettled in the last couple weeks. So just kind of starting there with prices, I think there was, in markets for equities had become kind of volatile. The VIX index, which is an indicator of how much uncertainty is in the market, has come up. And so I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now. There's a lot of questions about what does that mean for agriculture. We did see prices decline and then come back up a couple days ago. But on the whole, when we're seeing corn sub $4 a bushel, soybeans under $11 a bushel, that can be some cause for concern. Cattle markets are still really strong, prices still really elevated there. So for our region, that's a good thing. But we are starting to see some initial signs of weakness. And I think on the whole, agriculture as an industry is kind of just in a strange place right now because we're coming off of, I guess, a few years of really high commodity prices, high farm incomes, buildup in liquidity. And now we're coming off of that. So there's just questions of how quickly do things turn bad? What is the state of, what are farmers feeling right now? Are they able to tap into some of that liquidity that they just built up? Did they price in prices when they were high? How much are these lower prices going to affect them? So those are all things that we're trying to figure out currently.
Well, and part of that is figuring it out, the ag bankers and bankers that you deal with. I know you're working on that report as well. And the ABA is going to be meeting pretty soon too with kind of their outlooks. There are some challenges as everybody's kind of waiting for this fall harvest to see what happens the next year. And so what are our bankers still somewhat confident, or at least know we can maybe weather this?
I think that overall they are. I think especially because we just went through this in the 2013 to 2020 period. So they were able to go 7 years through a downturn without really seeing an increase in a lot of stress. So I think they know how to handle this. Similar to last time, we've seen commodity prices come down. But farmland values remain really strong, even in the midst of high interest rates, lower, commodity prices declining here over the last 6 months. And so I think there's still, especially some optimism around cattle and livestock. Hog prices have come back up. So I think that is good. But I think in the areas or regions that are more concentrated in crops that may still be dealing with drought, there is a little bit of concern. I think we do have some good risk management tools in this country, like crop insurance and markets and things like that. So I think, and just the lending environment in general, what our bankers are able to do. But overall, our data is starting to show some signs of weakness. We've seen, we asked our bankers a couple questions this last time about liquidity. A majority of our bankers reported that farm borrower liquidity was lower in the second quarter of 2024 compared to last year. In terms of farm production expenses, a majority were still seeing modest increases. A lot more last year, though, were saying they were seeing significant increases, and we also had more saying that they're seeing decreases. So I think it depends on the types of customers they're serving, whether they might be livestock or crop, and what region they're in. But overall, we are starting to see farm income come down at a quicker pace. But on the whole, credit quality, though, is still remaining really strong. Farm real estate values are still up over a year ago, even though the pace of increase is declining. And ranch land values are holding a relatively firmer than what we're seeing on the cropland side. And I think that highlights some of the relative strength in cattle markets relative to what we're seeing in crops right now.
Courtney Cowley is a senior economist at Kansas City Federal Reserve, joins us talking about the agriculture economy. We're going to take a quick break, back with more in a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
And our guest is Kansas City Fed's Courtney Cowley. She's a senior economist out of the Oklahoma City branch. And as we talk about this ag economy, probably it's general overall economy, the Fed Board of Governors met recently and then will continue again. It seems like everybody is concerned and everybody has an opinion about where interest rates should be.
That's right. And for those of you who are like, or for those that are like me, or if you get a chance to, on the Wednesday of every Federal Open Market Committee meeting, the chair does a press conference. And that's a really good way to get insights into what they're thinking, along with reading the statement that the FOMC puts out. And in his press conference, Chair Powell's press conference, he mentioned maybe the kind of opening the door to the possibility of rates coming down in September. And, it's in an interesting time when trying to do monetary policy in an election year. And also, as we talked about in the last segment, when markets are very volatile. I think the Chicago Fed president said yesterday, Austin Goolsbee said that the Fed is not looking to markets on when to move. So the Fed tries to stay apolitical, so separate from politics, and also, not really being market driven, but data driven. And so, and also focused really on our dual mandate, which is full employment and price stability. So we are starting to see prices go back to the 2% goal that the Federal Open Market Committee has. And we are starting to see unemployment tick up a bit. And so those two things combined could signal to the Federal Open Market Committee that it may be time to lower interest rates. There's been, some pullback in consumer spending, especially for low-income households, and particularly for things like eating out or luxury goods. High-income households, we're still seeing a lot of strong spending there, but we are beginning to see some weaknesses on the consumer spending side in certain segments of the economy. So I think that it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, there could be a lot of data coming between now and then. A lot could happen until the September meeting that we can't predict. But all in all, if inflation continues to go on the path that it's going, and we are starting to see a little bit of weakness starting to crop up in labor markets, then those two things could signal that it's for the Federal Open Market Committee that it may be time to go a different direction.
Before we wrap up, just want to talk a little bit about a couple of new reports you have out. Y'all did a deep dive kind of on that agriculture, energy kind of segments. Maybe one is relying on the other and vice versa.
That's right. We have a couple of publications out. I wrote what we call our economic review. It's a longer form article about the growing connections between agricultural and energy, and how renewable energy policy has really driven a lot of those changes, going back to the renewable fuel standard and what that did for corn, and then kind of maybe what does that tell us for as we're going into this new era with the Inflation Reduction Act and some of the infrastructure spending that's taken place for renewable energy, specifically biofuels. What will that mean for agriculture, particularly oil seeds like soybeans and things like that? And then we hosted an agricultural summit here in May where we discussed similar topics. And so we put out a report of a summary on key findings from that meeting, which included a lot of business leaders in the ag business space and policy analysts and researchers talking about what do some of these things mean, what's policy's role, what's the long-term trajectory for agriculture in light of some of these developments. So I think that your listeners and viewers might be really interested in those articles. Kind of a shameless plug here, but I think they're pretty interesting development.
All right, Courtney, as always, we appreciate the time to visit with us, give us the update of what's going on from the Fed standpoint for the ag economy, and we look forward to doing this again next quarter.
Thanks so much, Ken.
Great. Courtney Cowley, senior economist at the Kansas City Federal Reserve Oklahoma City branch, has joined us. We're going to take a break and come back with more in just a moment. Stay with us.
Premier Farm and Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Hi, my name is Rachel and I'm an agronomist at K-State. Today we're in one of the test plots that we have here at the university to talk about growth stages in corn and why they matter to farmers. So if you think about yourself in school, we have different grades that we have to go through in school, and each of those grades are associated with something that you should learn. That's our development of our brains. Corn develops in the same way, but we measure that through things called growth stages. And just like you have elementary school, middle school, high school, corn has two separate phases of its development: vegetative, which is like the plants you see in front of me, and reproductive, which would be these big tall plants here behind me. So at vegetative and reproductive stages, we're looking at different things to determine how developed that corn plant is. If we look at our vegetative plant down here, when we're staging vegetative plants, we're looking at the leaves. And you might look at this and think that you can see a lot of leaves. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 leaves that I can see, but the problem is that we don't count all of these leaves. Some of these leaves are still twirled up together in what's called the whorl, and those leaves we don't count as fully developed yet. In order to count a leaf, we have to see what's called a collar, which is this region right here where the leaf meets the stem. So if we see a collar, if that's flipped out like your shirt collar, kind of like the one I'm wearing today, if you have a collar, that's what we would count. So if we go all the way to the bottom, the first leaf in corn has a collar, and the end of that leaf is round and it's shaped like your thumb. So if you can find a leaf at the bottom that's round and shaped like your thumb, you know that you're at the bottom. So we would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leaves with collars. This leaf doesn't have a collar yet, so we wouldn't count it. So this is a B6 plant. When we get to our stages like the ones behind me, we would start looking at the ears to determine how advanced that plant is. Now, why would a farmer care what stage their corn is in? Well, if we think about V stages, so the vegetative stages when the corn is still small, some important things for a farmer to know is if they need to spray for weeds. So if they have a weed problem, before the crop reaches stage V5, which would be 5 collared leaves, it's really important for the farmer to use herbicides to make sure there aren't any weeds that could compete with that crop to steal its light, its water, and its nutrients, because we're not going to harvest anything from the weeds and that would be a waste. If we have corn that is between V5 and R1, which is when the silks start coming out of the ear, that is the point when the plant uses the most nitrogen. So some farmers will give the plant nitrogen when they plant it, and they'll give it some more around V5 so that the plant can use that really efficiently to make sure that we're using our nitrogen environmentally well. If we look at our reproductive stages, some of the key things here are protecting our ears and protecting our leaves. So if we have insects that are trying to eat our kernels, because they're delicious, just like you like to eat sweet corn, insects like to eat the corn too. The leaves we need to protect because there are solar panels. They're collecting that light and turning it into sugar so that we can fill those ears. So we might use a fungicide to protect the leaves during reproductive stages, and we might use an insecticide to protect the ears during reproductive stages.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Kansas producers should keep their eyes on their fields to monitor and control volunteer wheat. Doing so is essential to protecting next summer's harvest, as those sneaky plants harbor the wheat curl mites that carry yield-limiting diseases like wheat streak mosaic virus. Now's the time to be vigilant about volunteer control, said Kelsey Anderson Onofre, Assistant Professor of Plant Pathology at K-State's College of Agriculture. The best opportunity we have to manage wheat streak is by managing our volunteer wheat prior to planting. The situation this past season could lead to a heightened risk in 2024-2025. Onofre explained that a combination of meteorological conditions throughout the growing season led to increased wheat streak pressure on the 2024 wheat crop. This year was a bad year for wheat streak, not just in western Kansas, but across the state. We had very severe wheat streak across the whole northern tier of counties in Kansas, even in the northeast corner. That's atypical. In addition, we had higher than usual levels of triticum mosaic come through the K-State Plant Disease Diagnostics Clinic. Fields with wheat streak infections last year should be particularly mindful of volunteer management through the summer. While wheat streak is not treatable once fields are infected, the disease is preventable. An uptick in disease emphasizes that you can't rely on genetic resistance alone, she said. While we do have options and varietal selection is really important, that very first priority has to be controlling that volunteer wheat. Read the latest guidance from K-State Agronomy on wheat streak mosaic virus and the importance of controlling volunteer wheat this year at eupdate.agronomy.ksu.edu.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
Kansas Farm Bureau's Agricultural Reporting Award recognizes journalists who've helped bring the story of Kansas farmers and ranchers to life with timely and accurate reporting on issues affecting agriculture. This year, broadcast and print journalists submitted a record number of entries that were judged by Kansas Farm Bureau members and staff. For Best Audio-Video Feature, the winner is Pilar Pedraza of Cape for her in-depth look at how farmers and ranchers are dealing with water shortages and drought. In Best Audio-Video News Story, KSN's Samantha Boring receives top honors for highlighting how farmers adapted to drought during the spring planting season. For the print feature category, Faye Smith is the winner for featuring the stories of two families who suffered devastating losses in the four-county fire for the Angus Journal. In Best Print News Story, Macy Mueller's Kansas Stockman article took the top prize for explaining how the Asian longhorn tick could impact the beef industry. Congratulations, and thank you to these journalists for helping share the stories of farmers and ranchers in Kansas.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Ranch and Cattle will host the August 22nd KLA, Kansas State University Ranch Management Field Day in Gove County. The field day will include a market update, an overview of the ranch's grazing plan, and a session on how the family has incorporated wildlife conservation into their goal of increasing prairie land health. During his market outlook, Matt Clark, an economic analyst with Farm Credit's Terrain Group, will discuss the risks and rewards that come with record high beef prices. He will provide an overview of the latest consumer research and an update on beef consumption. Clark also will give an in-depth look into beef demand going forward to help ranchers prepare to make herd decisions. Roger Taha, a contractor with the Kansas Grazing Lands Coalition, will share the value of implementing a grazing management plan. He will discuss the plan he helped establish for the host ranch and highlight the importance of identifying plants and soil types during the process. Field Day host Stacy Hamey will lead an interactive tour of one of the prairie chicken leks on the ranch. Hamey has been a pioneer in advocating for lesser prairie chicken research, offering his land for several projects. Registration for the field day will begin at 3:30 p.m. and conclude with a free beef dinner at 7 p.m. All livestock producers and others involved in the business are invited to attend. For more information, go to kla.org and click on Events and Meetings.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Hello and welcome. Tanner Burning with Pinion Risk Management, giving you a commodity market update for the week of August 12th, 2024. We kicked off the week with the monthly USDA WASDE supply and demand report, as well as crop production estimates for corn and soybeans to be harvested in 2024. So without much delay, let's get into the numbers and the market's response. Beginning with corn, a mixed report which traded bullishly. Report reduced planted and harvested acres down nearly 1% off total previous report, but increased the expected national yield on those acres 3.3 bushel to the acre. On carryout and production balance sheets, this resulted in a net reduction to the production, while bears anticipating a higher yield were offset in the market as corn posted a key reversal on the day, closing 6.5 cents higher. Next, soybeans, which was the big bear on the report, as well as the market's reaction. We saw increased numbers across the board from acres both planted and harvested up 1.2%, as well as an increase to the yield of 3.2 bushel to the acre to post a record estimate of 53.2 as the national yield. If realized, this will be the largest national soybean production year on record. Markets snapped lower and consistently traded down 20 to 25 cents through the close. Winter wheat production estimates rose fractionally, but due to increased export demand, the carryout was reduced. Net price effect was neutral after the report as wheat closed down 7 cents lower on the day. Cattle markets continued to try and gain back losses from last week's stock market correction as indexes corrected from tech stock sell-offs, as well as the yen and global currency trade corrections due to raised interest rates in some of the funding currencies. Fundamentals for cattle still appear strong as cash continues to stay disconnected from the futures market due to smaller herd numbers. I've spoke to this before, but we believe recognition of trend and disconnection of emotions and feelings towards what prices should or should not be is key in making an informed marketing decision. These are tough markets to trade, and to say that one decision is going to make back the move of the sell-off of 2023 will be hard to account for. I encourage producers to know their numbers going into the fall and be watching for any market rally to sell into or use of risk management strategies to protect price. When it comes to following the day-to-day moves in an ever-changing agricultural environment, we at Pinion Risk Management look to be a trusted source of information for our clients, along with being a guiding hand on decision-making and reasoning towards a market plan. To learn more about our approach at Pinion Risk Management, please give us a call at 888-452-8751. I'm Tanner Burning with Pinion, and thank you for your time.
Well, that'll do it for our program today. Thank you so much for joining us. You can be social with us online at kansasagreport.net or our social media channels. I'm Ken Rogers. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.